When we are talking about the elasticity of demand, if we need to calculate it, the only calculation that the syllabus asks for is the total outlay method. Total outlay is another term for revenue. And as you know, I'm sure you know, revenue is just the number you've sold multiplied by how much you sold it for. So price times quantity. Once you've worked out the revenue or the total outlay, you have a look. Has the price increase led to an increase in revenue? Or does the price increase lead to a decrease in revenue? Or does the price increase cause no change to revenue? And each of those predicts it or matches up with a different type of elasticity that we've already looked at. So each of those will lead to either elastic, relatively inelastic, or unit elastic. And the way it works, through a worked example here, you look at price, you multiply it by quantity to work out your revenue, P times Q. So we start here. At $5, we sell a quantity of 50, and our revenue is $250. Obviously, there's no room for comment on elasticity here because there's been no price change yet, so it's not applicable right now. The price goes up $1, and let's see how that changes things. So, $6 times $45, we're now up to $270. So, has the $1 price increase affected revenue? Yes, it has, because we've gone up from $250 to $270. So, the price increase has led to an increase in revenue. Therefore, for this particular price change, it was relatively inelastic. Okay. Now, if we copy that formula all the way through, so 7 times 40 gives us a revenue of $280. What's happened from $270 to $280, or what's happened from $6 to $7? We've gone up, revenue's gone up $10. So again, for that small price change, it remains relatively inelastic because revenue's increased. We go up to $8. We're now selling 35. This time, revenue remains unchanged. So, really, that's unit elastic. Next price change goes up another $1. Now we're only selling 30. Our revenue has gone from 280 to 270. So now the price increase leads to a decrease in revenue. That's relatively elastic. And then we look here at the last price increase from 9 to 10. Our quantity, we now sell 25 units. Revenues come down to 250. So there's been a complete decrease again. Price increase leads to a decrease in revenue. Again, relatively elastic. So note that even though quantity has been decreasing steadily, you can't just assume that it's elastic demand because quantity is going down or quantity is contracting with the price increases. That's not necessarily what's happening, because for these couple of price changes, revenue went up. Even though we lost 5 in sales, we didn't lose revenue. And even though we've lost another 5 here, we haven't lost revenue. So that means the consumer has not been overly reactive to the price change. And that's probably because there were small increments. But now, when you look down here at $10, so when it's finished progressing, and we're now selling half of what we used to because of the double price, you see that it is now in fact relatively elastic demand. So the total outlay or revenue method for determining the elasticity of demand can only be used for individual price increases, not to really comment overall on the overall elasticity of of the demand for a product. It's just going to be with reference to individual price increases. Now, that being said, if you wanted to talk about the overall elasticity of demand from the $5 to $10, you could look at what happens between $5 selling at 50, selling 50 units, and when it's $10 that you're only selling 25, and obviously that's a huge elastic jump. But even if you wanted to look at what a graph would look like with reference to previous slides about how the slope of your curve can point you to how elastic demand is, it looks more like this one, where there's a strong price to change increase. So even though the actual price increases for the $1 differences were rather small, overall, if you look at the slope of the curve, you can see that it's more to the horizontal than it is vertical. So we would say overall, it was relatively elastic demand.